How's it going, guys? ShizuCats here, and today we'll be taking a look at Edea, the next unit coming out in the Bravely Default collab. Edea Lee is a character from the original Bravely Default, and in Octopath CotC, she is a warrior with access to both fire and light elements. However, just because she's a warrior doesn't mean she necessarily has to play like one, as you'll soon find out. Edea's voice actress is Mai Aizawa. Some of her most prominent roles in anime include Minene from Mirai Nikki and Mio from Nichijou, both of which are very different characters with very different vocal ranges, which really highlights her range. In gaming, apart from Edea, she also voices Marie Rose from the Dead or Alive series. Alright, let's take a look at Edea's stats. Offensively, her attack and magic are about where you would expect a warrior's to be. Her attack is fairly high at 389, trailing a little bit behind Fior, while her magic sits at 262, much lower than more magically inclined warriors like Tikilen and Eliza. Notably, she has very high defenses and low speed, which give her a feel similar to a taunt tank like Gilderoy. Let's go over her offensive assets. She starts with a 2-hit single target sword attack that can be swapped out later on for a 3-hit single target. This 3-hit skill is on a high potency but has a very high SP cost as a result, so watch out for that if you plan on spamming this move every turn. She also has a 2-hit sword single target that raises her own defense by 20% for 2 turns, similar to a skill used by the 4-star warrior Miles. This skill also shares the high potency and high SP cost of her 3-hit sword ability. One of her 5-star skills is a 230 potency sword nuke, which also heals a large chunk of her HP. This is basically the same skill as Gilderoy's heal spike, adding yet another parallel between the two characters. Her final sword skill in her kit is a simple 1-hit AoE. Not flashy at all, but also her only AoE option, so bring it if you feel you need it. On the magical side, she's technically a fire element character with access to both a 2-hit fire single target and 2-hit fire AoE. Keeping with the trend of many other skills in her kit, the 2-hit fire AoE has a pretty high potency and thus a very high SP cost. Her most notable magical ability is actually a light skill, Heaven's Gate, which is her other skill only available at 5-star. This ability starts out as a 2-hit light random target with an extremely high base potency of 2 times 150. When this skill is boosted, instead of increasing its potency, it increases the number of hits and reduces the power per hit slightly. When Heaven's Gate is max boosted, the number of hits and power both go up compared to the 2BP version, resulting in an extremely powerful skill with 600 total potency across 5 hits. While Edea's magic stat isn't currently geared to really maximize this ability's potential, equipment introduced much later into the game can help her out in a similar way to Tikilen and Eliza. On the utility side, she actually only has one skill, an AoE taunt that gives her 15% defense and magic defense up. This is, once again, an asset of her kit that she shares with Gilderoy, and combined with her 2-hit sword with defense up, allows her to reach the 30% physical defense cap all on her own. Both of her passives are very useful. Her 1-star passive gives her a 25% chance to gain 1 BP when hit by an enemy attack, which can proc up to once per turn per enemy. This is a passive that we've already seen on Hosami, and it's bound to pop up even more on Edea if you're utilizing her taunt skill to redirect all of the enemy fire to herself. Her 3-star passive gives her 20% damage up when striking enemy weaknesses, which, if you're bringing her to content where her attacking types are relevant, as we should, is just a blanket 20% damage boost. If you want to use her as a damage roll, bring a Skilled Warrior's Emblem or a Fire or Light Rune 2 to cap out her damage up to 30%. When evaluating Edea, we need to compare her to both her fellow warriors as well as tanks from other classes, as she's able to fulfill a tank role. As a warrior, she's able to put out some pretty significant damage with a fairly high attack stat on top of very high potency skills, and she has a built-in 20% damage up passive. Putting her next to Gilderoy, she's able to taunt and raise her own defenses, but suffers from not having an innate regen passive like he does, as well as having lower HP overall, not only because her max HP is around 300 points lower, but also because she doesn't gain the extra bonus HP from having a spear equipped. That being said, having a sword equipped does mean that she gets a pretty sizable chunk of free physical defense, as well as top tier physical attack. Overall, if I had to label Edea, I would call her a warrior first with defensive options, rather than a tank first with a sword, if that makes sense. She's great at dishing out damage and has defensive options as well if you need to utilize them, but I wouldn't label her as a great tank compared to the likes of a unit like Gilderoy. She also has her Heaven's Gate as another fantastic offensive option that basically no other unit in the game has anything like, and only gains more value as the game progresses, and she's able to do more and more damage with it. Her main shortcoming in my opinion is definitely her SP. With so many of her abilities having high SP costs, she can run out fairly quickly. If you want to bring her on your team, you need to keep a close eye on how much time she spends in your front line versus your back line, unless you want her to run out at a crucial moment. Which is another reason that I would recommend treating her as a damage dealing unit first, rather than a tank who wants to sit up in the front row the entire fight and soak up damage. And that concludes my character overview for Edea. She's a very unique character, being able to potentially fulfill a role that her class wouldn't normally occupy. I think if you're looking to try to add a full tank to your team, you should still look elsewhere, because at least to me, Edea definitely has a spirit of a warrior within her. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And until next time, this has been CheezyCats. See ya!